things about me?
As I promised, the carcass is about to be taken out of the oven. I think it's burnt, but you've all feasted on it. As I said, he's written a book. I'm his editor. I don't. For once, I have no control over this. But I thank all of you for making my life better. I have years of material. I said, remember the night when they said that? Now you'll listen to me, right? Kind of. But I want to say, and I want to again thank all the roasters. Give up. You guys have been great, and I hope everyone's had a fun evening. Alan will come up in a minute as soon as I let him, because I'm your editor, I can stop you when I want. But I wanted to say thanks to everyone, and after Alan gets up, there'll be a little more coffee and things, so feel free to hang out. Chef makes a fantastic breakfast. Exactly. That egg and salmon thing with a little, caviar in it, very nice. Take two. But Alan, I wanted to say, as I said earlier, in some ways you're the father I never had. You are a wonderful man. I've learned so much from you. I think much of the world has learned a lot from you. People often ask, how do you know these things? And I said, Alan's taught me. And I think that you have a great heart in that you sort of walk this wonderful world between, you have great enthusiasm for the worlds you write about, and you're able to bring great joy to them, and you also, as I say, you educate the readers and you excite them. And I couldn't think of a better person to sort of, so many, generations now have learned from you. And I think that's a great accomplishment and a wonderful thing to celebrate. You know I love you. It's the last good word you're going to hear tonight. I love you, and this room loves you, but I know, if I know Alan Richman, he's been keeping score. He's the man with the thinnest skin in the world. You know that's true, right? It's pretty thin. I don't know the French term for it, chef. What is it? It's like a paper thin. But anyway, Alan's going to come up. He's going to have some observations about the evening. He's been doing some reporting, so please, everyone, Alan Richman.
By the way, I had my hair cut a little differently. Don't you think Eric Repair and I look exactly alike now? People have been telling me that. I've really got a lot of compliments. I better just in general discuss this business about me being cheap. Right? I will admit, and this is true, that when I was about 8 years old, my parents took my sister and I to Miami Beach, and I came home with more money than I left with. I found out you could go under the cushions and find nickels and dimes. And I played some in the pinball machine, took the rest home. And I will admit the story Michael told about having a few francs and trying to foist them off on a waiter is true. But I think that was, once again, another example of being misunderstood, my humor, which happens so often. There are certain reasons why I don't spend a lot of money. For example, Danielle seemed particularly upset by my spending habits. But have you ever seen the markup on his wine list? And my friends back there, who, it is true that I sort of every great wine I've ever had in my life is because they bring them to restaurants with me. But look at those guys. Without me, they couldn't get into any good restaurants. And David Chang, at least David was the only honest one here, because the truth is that I've taken David out to a lot of meals and he has never picked up a check. In fact, I have never seen David Chang cook a dish. Has anybody here ever seen anybody? Don't worry. As it's well known that I sort of randomly strike out at everyone, whether they like me or not. You saw Eric's comments, and it's on the menu here, that for some reason Eric felt inclined to say this menu was my fault. Did you see this? Dictated to Chef Eric Repair. By the way, it wasn't bad, was it? I think it was. I think it wasn't bad. And I want to say that indeed I did select the dishes for the evening, and indeed I do not call Eric Repair because he calls me as frequently as he says he does, and each night I select the dishes that will be served at Le Bernardin. And this is sort of common the way it's always worked. And as for Maggie, the comment about I think she said I was a misogynist, I believe that was. When I first met Maggie, this was in late 1980s, she was single and I was single, and I said to her, you know, Maggie, you know, maybe, you know, you could go out. She said to me, I only go out with the married men. and you know, maybe 7 or 8 years later, I got married, and I said, hey, Maggie. And she said, no, I am not that way anymore. And I did take Eric out for strange meals like reindeer tendons or whatever they were, but the truth of the matter is I was preparing him, once again setting him up for a life of dining with Mr. Bourdain. Eric, by the way, is a very strange character. Have you ever heard him speak English? He can't speak English. And if you ever try to communicate with him, he has a certain charm and he doesn't tell you so. But he doesn't speak it. What is it? If you ever hear him say, I want to, you know, he calls people, when he says, you know, when he calls people, he wanted to call someone a bag lady, he called him a lady bag. I heard that. And you know, and he instead of when he wants to give somebody a butt kicking, he says, I'm going to give him a kick butt. He gets everything backwards. Gilbert Lecoq used to do that too. And Gilbert, who was the first owner, you all know, of the restaurant, he used to complain about, it was so wonderful, he complained about American customers. He said, they do not like fish. The only smart people in America was the man who invented the King Burger. I just love that. Julian Nicolini. This is the strangest man in New York. I mean, tonight he was Dante. You know, but most of the time, the only couple of words, everything Julian says is like hyphenated words. And words like, tonight I'm gonna bunga bunga, or this means the same thing, or I'm gonna shtuppy shtuppy. Well, is there any difference, Julian, between shtuppy shtuppy and bunga bunga?
You told me other thing.
And the people he don't, and people who also are not very bright, he calls stoopy stoopy. And this man is considered, Julian's considered one of the most fascinating, interesting men in New York. And as far as I can tell, all he's ever done is taken off his shoes and waded in the pool of the Four Seasons. In a very daring move, he hands out cotton candy to his guests, and he steals most of his clothing. Julian, have you paid for anything? No, not yet in his life. Stupid. By the way, that was I think something was said about John about the amount of money spent on this dinner. It is nothing compared The most money ever spent in this world, or stolen in this world, is by Julian Nicolini at the Four Seasons by sending out wine and food to Condé Nast editors who are eating there. They don't eat it, they don't drink it. He puts it on the bill and sends them directly to Cy Newhouse. That has gone on for at least 25 years, and exactly no food that is paid for by Condé Nast has ever been eaten at the Four Seasons. Listen, I want to say something about Sam and Frank. Obviously brilliant. Sharon Stone, by the way, hated me. I just want to make this clear. She truly loathed me. She walked into the restaurant. I have never seen a woman so beautiful. And I said how beautiful she was, and she looked me up and down, and I've never seen such contempt. However, you know that quote you made about serve me more of that wine that she said is in the book? That wine was the Beaucastel Vieille Vin Roussanne, and I found out later she served that wine at her wedding. Thank you very much, Sharon, for giving me credit for that. None whatsoever. By the way, the Leal story, you were right. I did take someone from my class to that review of Leal, just as you guessed I did. And she's available at any time as a witness to the cuisine I enjoyed there. The truth of the matter is, and I realize I should have never have done this because it was a bad idea, I actually went there hoping I could write that the food was much better since Anthony Bourdain left there. I swear that's the truth. I swear it is. I want to tell you how different journalism was back then. I rode the subways for 3 nights in New York in 1979, and later on, Walter Cronkite said it was one of the bravest things he's ever seen anyone do. Journalism has changed. There's a lot tougher things these days. And by the way, I want to put these two together because you are here in the presence of not just, these are the pretty boys of the New York Times. These are the future of the New York Times. I don't know, I've been telling Sam for 5 years he was going to become the executive editor someday, but you know, Frank is moving up fast. And yet these guys are wusses. I mean, can I tell you what, let me tell you about the career, let me tell you this. I mean, one of them, Sam, you were magna cum laude at Harvard. I mean, does anybody like people like that? I don't think so. Frank, he was Phi Beta Kappa where he went to school. These guys are like going neck and neck up this thing. Sam, you know what jobs he's had, the tough jobs he's had in his career? Sam's been a food editor and then he was a culture editor. I mean, and you know, the toughest assignment that Sam has ever had was to cover a flower show. and let me tell you, and you know, and the other thing that makes it really weird is his grandfather. His grandfather is Reinhold Niebuhr. Now, you know, Reinhold Niebuhr, you know, when kids got together and they were threatening each other, and they'd say like, my grandfather could beat up your grandfather, or my father's tougher than, you know, there's nobody in his family who could beat up anybody. and Frank, Reinhold Niebuhr, my ass, Frank had it a little tougher. Frank went to war. He was a correspondent in the Gulf War, and that was the war where every single soldier in the opposition was dead immediately. So the only thing I understand what war correspondents do. They go to the Hilton Hotel and they hang out up there in the lounge on the 36th floor. And when a waitress drops a glass, they dive under the table. They're so scared. I don't know. I mean, you know, Frank's a columnist now on the op-ed page. He writes, you know, he was named, I think, weren't you just named Gay Columnist of the Year or something like that? I think so. Yes, it was. It was by the Glad, 212 GLAAD Media Award. You were the Gay Columnist of the Year, Frank, whether you like it or not. And I know the competition was tough. The last winner was probably Michael Musto. So I think what I want from these guys, I think we have to toughen them up. And I think I want to see Sam go to a Ranger game and maybe cold cock somebody there. And Frank, I want you to go to Howard Beach. Sam, Frank, I want you to go to Howard Beach on the next Gay Pride Day. And I'll go along. I've always found you attractive, and you know that. Letty, you know, there's the other, of course, there's the other reason I'm cheap, the divorce settlement. You know how it works in it? Never mind, I won't tell you. You know, it's funny, Letty said something. Letty is, by the way, the greatest ex-wife a man could have. She really is. We have never gotten along better. Well, I want to get married a couple more times just so I can have more ex-wives. But it's funny, she said something, this is absolutely not planned in advance. Letty said something about Queens and about garbage. And can I read you a little blurb from the unpublished book about Queens? And this is about me and Letty?
Yes.
I'll make it quick. It is 2 a.m. in Forest Hills. My wife and I hear a noise. She is sitting up straight, in bed, the way people do when babies wail or windows break. It is not that. It is the most ordinary sounds, the metal-on-metal clang of garbage pail striking garbage truck. What's that, she asks. But with my wife, there are never questions. There are invariably drama-laced inquiries, implying the world is not proceeding according to her plans. My wife has become obsessed with garbage. Even the lifting of the pails, work that would ordinarily take a burly man, is not trusted to me. She, a spindly 112 pounds, hurls these mammoth containers around with such ease that it reminds me of the ancient gods of legend, toying with the natural topography of the earth. I say, so the garbage truckers here. We need do nothing. It is garbage. To me, if not to my wife, garbage is without consequence. She says it is not the right time for the garbage. Is there a right time or wrong time for garbage? If garbage isn't done right, who would know? She says, they never come at night. I turn over and I say to her, so we'll get them next time. My wife believes that any food item left in the refrigerator for more than 12 hours becomes dangerously unstable and must be discarded. Our garbage is so new that another 3 or 4 days in the can will make it fresher than almost any other garbage on the route. Listen, I say, in the morning you can call the special garbage number. She has it memorized. Tell them they must send someone to pick up our garbage. Amazingly enough, this is a service provided, at least in theory, in New York. She says, they don't answer the number anymore. This is true. And you know why? She has personally called that number so frequently they have discontinued it. I am married to the only garbage hotline crank caller in the world. I ratchet up my best middle-of-the-night sarcasm. I say to her, what do you want to do, chase the garbage trucks? Yes, she says. And there's just one small addendum to that. Not only did we chase the garbage trucks, remember we're chasing garbage trucks. And she kept saying, go faster, go faster. Daniel Ballou. I think you made that statement that you have been cooking longer than I have been writing. However, I am still writing, and when is the last time you've done any cooking?
You'll be surprised, Richman.
And the story that you wished to disparage me about, the Paul Bocuse story, and she said, poor Paul Bocuse, I ripped him because of the little boy playing the music. I quote you, the little boy playing the music. You go into the Paul Bocuse restaurant, and they have a small midget black man. I'm not making a word of this up. Dressed in a monkey grinder's outfit, playing a monkey grinder's machine. That is the little boy playing the music. Oh yeah, it's French, all right. And I do believe there was somewhat of
That was your birthday!
I do believe there was something of a challenge to me that I couldn't cook and therefore I wasn't worthy. I will challenge you anytime, and you're all invited, to a cheese blintz contest. I can crush you at cheese blintz anytime. By the way, did anybody, you know, look at this man, by the way. Look at this man. Beautifully dressed, calm, in control of everything. He looks like the most perfectly possessed man in the world. I'm told that he is really secretly nuts. I have been told that at 5 o'clock in the morning, if you're out with Daniel Boulud, he says, "Let's make eggs." That every night at 5 o'clock in the morning, he has to cook eggs. Is that true?
I do.
I have also been told that if you invite Daniel Boulud to your home for dinner, he will walk in the house, and the first thing he will do is rearrange your furniture. The next thing he will do is walk into the kitchen. He will open the refrigerator. He will decide what is going to be had for dinner, and he will cook it. He allows no one to do anything that is not under his control. Is that true also?
That's true.
And I must say, Sam Sifton's description of my meal at Danielle was pretty accurate. He was, man makes a great duck. You have to go for that duck dish. And it's such a ceremony.
But I want to say then, tomorrow on YouTube there'll be an interpretation of the duck where Alan Richman head goes into the press.
Ooh.
You don't know!
Oh. Wow. I have to say I have a little problem with David Chang's speech. He got everything right. Every neurosis I have, he understood it. You know, I think he basically said I was, in one way, professional. You know, I seem to be somewhat poised, and in my personal life, I'm nuts. Wasn't that basically the way a summary of what you said?
Sure.
Yes. My neighbor, who I think Letty mentioned, is a genuine Austrian psychiatrist, the real thing, a Freudian psychiatrist. And I was once telling her what I was like, and she said, well, the reason you act that way is you have a very good self-image professionally and a very terrible self-image personally. Interesting. So, David, I think that's probably your problem, too. I have a couple things just to say about David Chang. You all know of his few flaws. He does curse a lot. You know that he likes to punch holes in the walls of his restaurant. And you should also know that he curses out his servers in his restaurant all the time. He calls them names, he calls them worthless, and he hates them all the time. Now, all this is minor, but the most interesting thing about David Chang is many years ago I fixed him up with a woman. As far as I can tell, she has never been seen again. And what I want to know, is she buried in the basement of the Sambar? All right. That leaves one more gentleman. You were very kind to me, which I sort of appreciate. And I have to think about. I was a little unexpected. I have to think about the idea that I always thought Details was the gay magazine. Did I get that wrong? I thought that. I thought we were sort of the house organ of Hooters. There are more tits in our magazine than any magazine on earth. Isn't that not true? No? I don't know. I mean, I just thought, I always liked, I was, you know, you had a career waiting for you at GQ magazine. You know, Anthony in Armani, but I think it's not going to happen now. I think you've been I don't know if we are a gay magazine or not. I mean, I did do 2 stories on Arnold Schwarzenegger. Does that make us a gay magazine? I did Jerry Seinfeld, and I've been hearing rumors. But I don't know. I'm innocent of all this sort of thing. I have to say that in many ways, I'm very thankful for Mr. Bourdain's comments about me. We've had our fights, but do you know how great it's been for me? I want to read you something from his Wikipedia. His Wikipedia entry. It says, this is the greatest compliment I've ever had. It says, and I quote, he voiced a serious disdain for food demigods like Alan Richman, Alice Waters, and Alain Ducasse. Where else, how else would I ever be in a sentence with Alice Waters and Alain Ducasse if it weren't for you? I thank you for your abuse very much. I want to also thank all of you for this is like the best thing that's ever happened to me. All right, or a few other things, but this is really quite wonderful that all you came. That Jim Nelson did this for me. It's probably like one of the most wonderful things that ever happened. And Michael Haney, he abused me a lot, but nevertheless, I think there was love in it. And so many of my friends from all over the country are here, and I don't know what to say about this. I was asked if this is the greatest moment of my life, and at least my professional life, and I don't know. I guess maybe it has to be. I don't know how anything can get better than this, or more wonderful than this, or more brilliant than the speeches. And all of you, what you put into making these talks tonight. I just thank you. Anthony, I thank you for coming and doing this. I know, I really do. And Eric for putting this on. And you were good too, what a shock. Man, so anyway, I don't know if I'm the person to say goodnight to all of you, or is someone else going to say goodnight to all of you?
We're going to say goodnight.
Someone else is going to say goodnight to all of you, but all I can do is thank you. I've never been more honored in my life.